Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is fantastic to be here today with the Western Australian Premier, Mark McGowan, also with the Western Australian Minister for Transport, Rita Saffioti, and also with Stephen Price, one of the local members. But also joining me here today are my federal colleagues, the Assistant Minister to the Prime Minister, Ben Morton, the Minister for Indigenous Affairs, Ken Wyatt, and of course the Member for Swan, in Steve Irons. And we are here today to reaffirm the Morrison government's commitment to Western Australia. Next week, in Tuesday's budget, we will provide an additional $1.3 billion to fund new infrastructure projects in Western Australia. And I'm very, very pleased that we have been able to work cooperatively with Premier McGowan, with Minister Saffioti, in terms of their priorities and the Commonwealth being able to facilitate that funding. As we know, when you invest in infrastructure, you invest in jobs. And I think all of us, as fellow Western Australians, are very, very pleased that this additional $1.3 billion over the life of these projects will create around 4,000 direct or indirect jobs. And when you look at the pipeline of work, that really says to Western Australians that investment in infrastructure, it is creating me a job. But what it also does for Western Australians is say that working together, the Morrison government with the McGowan government here in Western Australia, we're all about ensuring the safety of Western Australians on their roads, and of course getting them home faster with congestion busting infrastructure. Nobody likes to sit in their car. You've always got something better to do, but also making it just easier for businesses to get around. We have some really good projects that are being funded, and Minister Saffioti will go into them further. But in particular, can I highlight where we are today? The Perth Airport Precinct and Northern Access. This is an $85 million investment by the Morrison government, matched by the state government. And this is all about ensuring the safety of Western Australians who travel these roads, but also ensuring that easier access to the Perth Airport Precinct. And of course we've seen an investment, this is one we all know, in the duplication of the Mandurah Estuary Bridge. Talk about congestion busting infrastructure. And of course there's an investment to upgrade $100 million the Marble Bar Road, or should I say 100 kilometres of the Marble Bar Road. That is an investment in economic infrastructure. Since we were elected to government, we have now invested as a federal government in infrastructure in Western Australia, heading towards $17 billion. That's working cooperatively with the state government to ensure that we are funding better infrastructure for Western Australia, but also ensuring that we are creating that pipeline of jobs. And as I said, today's announcement, $1.3 billion, an investment by the Morrison government in infrastructure in Western Australia. This is all about ensuring the safety of Western Australians on the roads, getting them home faster, getting that business access so much better, but also the creation of what will be around 4,000 direct or indirect jobs. And on that basis, I'm delighted to now hand over to the Premier of Western Australia, Mark McGowan.
Thank you, Michaelia. Thank you all for coming out here today. Before I talk about today's important announcement, I'll just give you the latest figures on COVID. Firstly, there were 0 new cases overnight, both in the community and also in hotel quarantine, which is actually terrific news. We did 7,534 tests in Western Australia yesterday, so very significant amount of testing, and we still came up with 0 cases in the community, so that's great news. Obviously, no one became positive in our hotel quarantine system, which is also good news. We have 26 active cases in our hotels and hospital, including 3 in Royal Perth Hospital as we speak. And obviously our contact tracing is ongoing. In terms of the Pan-Pacific cluster, there were 79, we've identified 79 close contacts, 49 have come back negative, the other results are pending. We have 429 casual contacts, 134 negatives, but that number will grow today as we do get further results through in terms of our testing regime. Just a couple of things. Obviously, I got vaccinated yesterday. I'm encouraging everyone to get vaccinated across Western Australia when your turn comes. It's been very busy. Our Claremont clinic is pretty much full at this point in time, but the Redcliffe Airport Clinic and the Kwinana Clinic have spots available, so if you want to get vaccinated, please book in for those. There's various GPs that are authorised to do it, so have a look at the website to find those. And our Joondalup Clinic we expect will be up by the end of the week. So we're doing as much as we can to get people vaccinated who are eligible in the over 50 cohort, and when your time comes, please make sure that you go and take advantage. We've made a decision. There's a glory game tomorrow night. It won't have crowds, and so the game will be played a bit like the football the other day, where there was no crowds. So that will be the situation at the glory tomorrow night. And finally, we announced this morning a $2 million grants program for support for health initiatives in India. This program the state government will fund to ensure that we work with local community groups to provide support, whether it's PPE, whether it's ventilators, whether it's oxygen, whatever can be done. There's a range of local Indian groups providing support into India, and we'll assist them with funding to support those sorts of initiatives. So wherever they can acquire PPE, wherever they can acquire oxygen from, we're going to support to get as much of that into India as possible. We know what's happening in India is a human tragedy, and as a state, we want to make sure we do our bit, and also, of course, helps. The sooner the situation gets resolved in India, the better it is for everyone across the world. So we are keen to do our bit. I flagged this last week at National Cabinet. We'll be doing something, and so today we've announced this program, and hopefully it makes a difference, and hopefully it helps and sets the right example and saves some lives. I'll hand over to Ben Morton, who's going to say a few words. Oh, sorry, today's announcement. That's right. What do we do?
That's $1 billion.
What are we doing here again? No, this is terrific. Can I thank the Commonwealth Government for their funding commitment, $1.3 billion. The state will work out our commitments in our budget towards these projects, but we've worked very cooperatively over the course of our time in office to jointly fund infrastructure. So whether it's rail or roads, city or country, we work cooperatively to maximise outcomes for the state. I think that's what a state government should do, maximise outcomes, get as much support and activity into the state as possible. That's what this is about. Road and rail are both in the country, the city, and the rail project in the eastern suburbs, the Armidale line. This will make a massive difference, and over coming years, not only will it create jobs, it will also create a better quality of life. So we're very pleased to work with the Commonwealth on this important project. Ben.
Thanks, Premier, and it's great to see you so well today after having your vaccination, and I encourage all Australians over 50 to make sure that they're vaccinated as well. It's great to be here with the Premier, with my colleague Minister Cash, but also with Rita Safiotti, the WA State Transport Minister. It's an important day, $1.3 billion worth of funds from the Morrison Federal Government to help bus congestion here in Western Australia. Not just in Perth, not just in the outer urban areas, but right across Western Australia in regional areas as well. Not just on road, but also in rail. As Minister Cash said, this additional announcement of $1.3 billion that will be confirmed in the budget coming up next week to be handed down by the Treasurer Josh Frydenberg, this will bring total federal Liberal government investment into road and rail projects in Western Australia to $17 billion since 2013. There isn't a road or rail project in Perth or Western Australia that wouldn't have federal funding towards it. There might be one here or there, but on the rare occasion, there wouldn't be many cases where there isn't a partnership between the state government in delivering these projects on the ground, backed in by a federal Liberal government that is supporting the congestion busting with the funding that's required, not only to make sure that we get goods from where they're produced to where they're going onto the shelves, but also importantly to get families and people home quickly and safer as well. So today we join with the McGowan state government in a true partnership with the Morrison Federal Liberal government to ensure that we're delivering for what the Western Australians want, and they want better infrastructure, better road infrastructure better rail infrastructure, including Metronet here in Perth, but also that very important economic infrastructure in the regions of Western Australia, which will help in the wheat belt, but also, as you've heard, in the north on the Great Northern Highway, but also in Marble Bar Road as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's with great pleasure today to welcome the $1.3 billion from the federal government, and can I once again thank the federal government for their strong partnership in delivering record infrastructure around the state. We welcome the additional funding. As the Premier outlined, we're going through our own budget process and we'll be making further announcements relating to matching funding later on. But this is a welcome news. There's a couple of points I really want to make today. One is to make sure there's a strong pipeline of work for Western Australians and Western Australian industry. What we heard is that Western Australian industry companies need a pipeline of work. They need a guaranteed level of work over the next 4 to 6 years to give them the confidence to invest in new capital, to train young people and to train Western Australians. So having a pipeline of work, making sure there is consistency in spending over a period of time, gives Western Australian companies the confidence to invest in buying new equipment and also in training and employing local people. We are spending over $240 million per month currently, and this will allow us to continue that spending and also to increase that spending next year. We're partnering with Indigenous companies, Indigenous businesses, supporting young new companies to make their mark in Western Australia and making sure that we give opportunities to young Aboriginal people in Western Australia to be working on these projects, not only regional projects but also in the metropolitan area. This package is all about reducing congestion, but it's also about facilitating business investment and, of course, supporting Metronet. In relation to congestion, we're removing another 2 set of traffic lights on Reid Highway. So now through that West Swan area, you won't see traffic lights at West Swan Road, Drumpelia and Altone. So that's the removal of those traffic lights there. Just behind us, a new interchange. Not only will it reduce congestion, but it will support the development of the Airport North precinct. And that's all about creating a new employment hub and again ensuring that we have new job creating areas here in the eastern suburbs. If you look in the regions, the support for agricultural freight movements. This is all about supporting rail in regional WA. It's supporting better movement of our freight to ports to ensure that we can continue our trade performance. The Marble Bar Road is about supporting new investment. And of course, regional road safety is a strong focus. The allocations to 2J Road to Great Eastern Highway is all about making sure that we can improve regional road safety, making it easier to move freight around Western Australia. And in particular, the Great Northern Highway, 2J Road and Great Eastern Highway has been a high priority for our trucking industry, and I really support that expenditure. And of course, Metronet. I mean, Metronet is well underway. It's an exciting time for WA, and what this now allows us is to remove more level crossings on the Armidale line. So this package will now see not only Mint, Oates and Walshpool Road level crossings removed, and 2 new stations being built at Carlisle and Oat Street. But this will also see level crossings removed at Hamilton and Wharf, and it would also see new train stations developed through Cannington. So again, not only is it about reducing congestion in those areas, it's about creating new places for people to live and really facilitating more economic activity. And when you go down to Armidale too, this is about ensuring that we elevate the rail through Armidale, so we retain connectivity, but also ensure that we're not back in 5 years' time trying to get more money to try and fix Armidale Road level crossing. So this is future-proofing Armidale and facilitating, in a sense, rejuvenation of Armidale that they've been waiting for many years. So it's a very exciting package. I welcome again the partnership. As State Transport Minister, I've worked very well over the past 4 years with the federal government, and I look forward to delivering these projects. Any questions about these projects? Well, there's a number of commitments we gave, and sorry, I didn't highlight, of course, the Mandurah Estuary Bridge. And you might recall that just a few months ago, we were standing there in Dawesville, and we announced our commitment, and I really welcome the partnership with the federal government. So that's a project that we made a very strong commitment to the people of Dawesville and Mandurah, and we know it's been a much wanted and talked about project for many, many years. So we're wanting to bring forward that project. In relation to Metronet, we're actually in tender discussions and contract discussions currently. So what this will allow, the funding certainty, is to expand those contracts, and they've already been priced options in that tender process. So we're able to build a bigger project, and those projects are under current tender processes. So they're projects that are currently well advanced in their tender negotiations, and of course the Estuary Bridge. In relation to regional WA, remember we're spending over $500 million on regional road safety throughout regional WA currently over this year and next year. So we'll be looking at what else we can do to bring forward other works, but primarily we have to spend our money on regional road safety and then look at projects, for example, like the Great Eastern Highway and Marble Bar Road in particular, because that's facilitating further private sector investment. Sure. As you would have heard or we've outlined before, what we've undertaken is sort of an intermodal look at how we move freight throughout regional WA. So there was the supply chain study that was undertaken by 42 councils in the southwest, but then we also created the new agricultural freight strategy, and that was looking at how we improve roads, rail and port infrastructure, look at the entire supply chain, both through the southwest, the wheat belt and the midwest. That strategy was done in conjunction with the private sector to get a priority list of projects. During the election, for example, the State Labor Party committed $22 million to invest in improving some rail sidings across a number of sites, CBH sites. So what we'll be doing, using that commitment, seeking a contribution from the private sector, and also working with the federal government to implement different parts of that strategy. The priority, of course, will to deliver those election commitments we made to improve, in a sense, the Tier 2 rail through those areas. But it's all about working with industry and ensuring that we look at not only roads, but rail and port infrastructure to see how we can move our freight to ports in the most efficient way possible to support our farming communities.
Will the airport link open this year?
We'll be providing an update on the airport link in a few days or within a week's time. Pardon? Oh, well, look, we're always working with the Commonwealth to get more, but I want to say this, we have got significant funds that we're allocating at the moment, over $240 million per month, and that will increase next year. As I said, this is all about making sure we have a pipeline of work. So this is making sure that we don't see the up and down funding that occurred maybe 6 or 7 years ago. This is all about making sure we have a pipeline of work. So industry is out working really hard, and can I thank industry for their partnership also with WA. The workers are out there working hard, delivering our projects. So we're very keen to continue to spend, and of course in future budgets and future processes we'll be seeking more funds, because that's how we work together with the federal government. But this will very much help us continue that pipeline of work and address many of those congestion issues that people have raised concerns about.
Are there any federal issues? And then we'll turn to the state issues with Premier McGowan. We are very confident in the decisions that have been made by the Health Minister, because they are made under the Biosecurity Act. And you would have seen the Health Minister and both the Prime Minister state that there have been a number of instruments issued under the Biosecurity Act in the last 12 months. But to be very clear, this is all about keeping Australians safe. What we are currently seeing occur in India is absolutely devastating. Around 300,000 cases per day. You also have in quarantine the caseload that have been coming in from India are those who are testing positive to COVID-19. This is merely a pause on those flights coming in from India to ensure that the quarantine system that we have in Australia is just given a pause, and then it is then able to keep Australians safe when we resume those flights. All of the decisions that we make in relation to, in particular, the health aspects of COVID-19, They are based on the best available advice from the Chief Medical Officer and the decisions that have been made in relation to the pause of flights from India until the 15th of May have been made under the Biosecurity Act.
Just to be really clear, the government didn't have any concerns about the legalities of implementing this change?
Again, we already have a number of instruments that have been made by the Health Minister under the Biosecurity Act. That is what we have done in this case. A decision has been made utilising the Biosecurity Act. At all times, the primary objective of the government, and I think it's the primary objective of all of us as Australians, is to ensure that we keep Australians safe from COVID-19. And if that means that we need, in this case, because India, as you would know, has been listed by the Chief Medical Officer, the Chief Health Officer, as a high-risk country, if we do need to put a pause on the flights, we will, and we have done that, but that is to ensure that the quarantine facilities that we do have that necessary capacity as soon as we resume those flights. And the Prime Minister has been very clear in his statements. Our expectation is a 2-week pause and flights will probably resume on the 15th of May. Okay. No, what the Prime Minister has said is under the Biosecurity Act, a number of instruments have been made over the last year. If you breach those instruments, you are subject to penalty under the Biosecurity Act. That is the same case in relation to the decisions that have been made by Minister Hunt in terms of people returning at this point in time from India. But the Prime Minister has also made it clear that to date, no one has been prosecuted. We take these decisions very seriously. I met with the Indian community, as did Assistant Minister Morton, on the weekend to talk through these issues with them. They also understand that the decisions that a government has to make in a global pandemic are to protect the health and safety of Australians. This is a pause on flights to ensure that the quarantine system has that necessary capacity to cope with the next lot of returning Australians, bearing in mind that what we are seeing in India, when you have in excess of 300,000 cases of COVID per day, when you do have people returning from India that are testing positive for COVID-19, that does put pressure on a quarantine system. But this is a pause. It is a necessary pause, and the Prime Minister has been clear. We would hope to resume flights as soon as possible, that being on the 15th of May. And again, we want to ensure that we are able to facilitate their travel home. This is going to enable us to do that, and the pause on flights should resume on the 15th, or should finish, and flights will resume on the 15th of May.
On China, are there concerns within Cabinet that China's trying to buy influence in the Indo-Pacific region?
Well, I think Minister Payne and certainly the Prime Minister, they've made our position on China very, very clear. We want to have, as the Australian government, a cooperative relationship with China. We have a very strong economic relationship with China, I think, as we stand here today in Western Australia. Western Australians in particular appreciate that strong economic relationship that we have with China. But the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister have also been clear. We will also never compromise our sovereignty, and that is in relation to any country in the world. But certainly from the Australian government's perspective, we want to continue a cooperative relationship with China, and certainly as a Western Australian Senator standing here today with Western Australian colleagues and the Premier of Western Australia, we understand the benefit of that economic relationship that we have, in particular in relation to a resources-based economy.
Are you concerned there could be a legal challenge of the pause to Indian arrival?
Well, again, you are entitled to challenge these decisions, and in the event that it is challenged, the government obviously would defend its position. As I've said, there have been other decisions made under the Biosecurity Act. I don't believe that those decisions have been challenged. When you are in the middle of a global pandemic, you are able to make certain decisions that you would otherwise not make, and certainly that is what has been done in this case. And again, just to be clear, this is all about, in the first instance, I mean, it's great that we can all gather here like this today. It really is. Protecting the health and welfare of Australians in Australia. But at the same time, we acknowledge we do need to bring Australians home, and that is exactly what we have been doing over the last year. At this point in time, though, because of the situation in India, because India is now listed as a high-risk country on advice from the Chief Medical Officer, we have determined that it is in the best interest.
See them here with a bit more of a smile on their face than usual. It is a very welcome sight, and for the industry to be celebrating its own success and its perseverance, I think is a tremendous thing. And it's good to be able to say thank you to them for the great job that they're doing. But the best way that we can say thank you and to support the industry, as we've supported Beef Week here, is to be doing the things on policy